What was your first development job, and is there anything that you know now that you wish you had known then?
Well, first development job, I would definitely say SNV as a job. It was a paid job. But this reminds me of something that a friend of mine at Ashoka recently wrote, I think, at LinkedIn piece. And I actually strongly believe in it. That's it. I'm saying this. That some of this ideas and action comes and learning comes at a very young age, at kindergarten, middle school, high school. And I strongly believe that. I started something called Calcutta Youth Club when I was in high school to bring kids from different religion, from kids from different socio-economic background to engage in civic activities. So from one thing I do want to mention is you don't have to wait for a job to start doing things. And I think that should start very early. At the end of the day, I think we had this notion that nonprofit is some kind of a foreign world. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's mission driven. Yes, it's mission driven. And I think more you engage, you realize that a lot more bridges can be built between government, private sector, and the nonprofit world. And I think that's a lesson I learned, but I wish I knew it before. Maybe I would have able to put that effort sooner than later.
Right. And you mentioned that you don't need to wait for a job to get involved in development issues. But what would you advise someone starting out earlier in their career as far as what they should be looking for in jobs and education and training and experiences that will prepare them for this type of career?
First of all, you don't have to join NGO or development world to do good. You can do that as an impact investing fund manager. So that's, I think, one thing to keep in mind. The second thing I always say that this notion that the nonprofit world or the social sector have people who are a lot more kind and gentle and nice vis-a-vis our counterpart in the private sector is simply not true. I come from private sector. I can tell you right now there are equal amount of empathy, people with empathy and good wishes in all sectors. I think that's something we need to kind of, and still then if you want to work for the nonprofit sector, the development sector, sure, then you follow what you follow in any career. First and foremost, you start meeting people that you know in the sector. You talk to them, you learn what they are doing. Two, I will say, become a member of DevEx, get to know SID, interaction, this trade organization and NGO of associations, so you're exposed to the environment and what they're talking about. Travel not just to Europe, but travel to some of the places that, that are having much tougher challenges than what we do in our hometown. I will also recommend strongly getting internship. I think there's nothing like getting a real understanding, working as an internship at an organization where you can expose to many kinds of work.
And you have an MBA, right? And we done a survey the past couple of years to recruiters around the most in-demand degrees. And for 2 years in a row now, the MBA has been the second most in demand after a master's in international development. So we're seeing a real growth in that. How do you think having that kind of training and background is valuable, and how have you applied that to your career?
It's very useful, very useful. A couple of thoughts on that. There is a general lack of C-suite executives in the NGO world as a whole, right? So I think an MBA can fill that gap. But let's talk about something else, I think, which is equally important, that I have seen wonderful talent in the whole NGO sector. And I think what some of them need may not be, not everybody will get an MBA. What they need is training and support. And one number worth mentioning, I read it somewhere, I suppose, that the private sector spend around $125 per employee per year for training. NGO sector spend $29 per employee per year. Well, Kate, if we are talking about level playing field, if we want to perform as a private sector, then I think we need to look at that angle as well, how much we invest in our staff for them to grow.
And as president of SNV USA, you were overseeing a lot of hiring as you're building up. What were the most important attributes that you looked for, and what could people do to really stand out to you?
I mean, of course, every job varies, but so I'm going to focus on this question mainly on soft skill, because this is, the hard skill are, of course, specific to a job. The soft skill, I think, I find that it's not enough to have just passion for the cause. I think it's important to have compassion and empathy, which I think is lacking these days. So I think I value that quite a bit. And then the others are, some of the things you may have heard. I think, I'm a big believer of integration. And one thing I'm seeing more and more that, yes, you can have a one skill set or very good at one thing, but you must know some other things. Having being flexibility to utilize no matter what the organization need or the sector needs, I think that mindset, I think is very important, that you're not stuck in silo. Because if we keep talking about industry as a silo and as an individual, we don't follow that path, then we are contradicting ourselves. So be flexible, be more multi-talented. You must have some knowledge of finance. I think numbers are very important. We have the reputation in the NGO world that we didn't focus too much on accountability and return on investment. I think it's no longer a conversation of private sector. I think these are conversations for all of us. What's the return, the effort we are putting into? So those skill set.